I do apologise. I just realised my mic was muted for the first couple of minutes of that. I do apologise for the first 2 minutes. So I'll explain again what I said. Um, if you hear banging in the background, it's my neighbour downstairs. He quite often does it, especially through the early hours of the morning. Um, I've not been as active on the political hour this week. I will. I've done a few things on there, like the trade deal with India, and a couple of other things. Um, I've been writing a story that I've had going on in the background for a long time now. I first started writing stories about 11 years ago to help with depression, to keep my mind focused. And this story just suddenly all clicked into place for me. And so I've been writing a lot for that. I'm hoping it'll be finished by the end of this week. So hopefully a full book finished by the end of the week. Not reading, writing. Um, so what we're going to talk about this week, we're going to talk about the trade deals that the British government have done this week. We're going to look at His Majesty's Inspectorate for Constabularies and Fire and Rescue Services, a report that came out this week for what happened with the riots across the UK in the summer, mainly England. Hello, my one viewer, whoever you are. Welcome. Also going to look at a section called Voices from the Street, talking about issues going across the UK about local governments, stories that have popped up in the news in the last week or so. And finally, a quick mention about the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. So let's get into it. Let's talk trade deals. Now, 2 trade deals have been announced this week, one with India, one with the United States. The India one has been signed. The United States one hasn't, but it was announced to coincide with America lowering the tariffs on certain things that they had raised tariffs. People might say this is a good thing, and it is, in a way. But we'll talk about the India one first. The India trade deal is a £4 billion trade deal. I don't know whether that's 4 billion extra in what we trade already, which we have export of 16 billion and theirs is rough, and we import roughly 17 billion from India. I'm all for trade deals. I'm all for creating more money within the economy and making things easier. But as often, the devil is in the details. Now, looking at the India one, on the surface, good thing. It makes the immigration much easier to the UK from India, lowering the threshold, which is not a good thing considering we have an immigration problem already. Net migration far outstrips emigration at the moment. And the biggest controversy is if a company in India seconds somebody to work in the UK, so working for the same company in the UK, they can have 3 years of no national insurance payments, which is employee and employer NI. Now, they say, oh, this is exactly the same as what we do with the other 50 deals we've already got. Well, no, those deals have 1 year of no national insurance contributions. They still have to pay whatever their equivalent is in their other country, same as India will have to do. But the difference here is there's a worry that small subsidiary companies will be set up in the UK, basically shell companies that link back to the thing, and they'll use foreign workforce to have much cheaper labour, which will depress wages, will make it harder for people get jobs. So that is the biggest result of it. Immigration is the depression of wages. It doesn't thing. So there's been a lot of criticism with that. And it's funny that the people who were arguing against Brexit are happy with this trade deal. Oh, it's a big thing. Look, yeah, everybody who wanted Brexit should be happy with it. And the people who were for Brexit are happy, but are not happy because they see that things like the loosening of the rules around immigration, the national insurance as a betrayal. And I quite understand that. But it shows we can do deals with other countries. This was a deal that was given to the Conservatives roughly 2 years before, and it was turned down by then Business Secretary Kenny Badenoch because of the attachments to it. It really benefits India more than it does the UK. And as they're a bigger market, it's going to be harder for us to benefit. They say, oh, yeah, well, we can sell cars better there. Well, they've got their own car makers, which are often much cheaper and easier to sell in their own country. It's going to be the struggle. And luxury car makers like Jaguar and Land Rover would only sell to the elite who have got money. And India, despite being a growing economy, is quite desperately poor in a lot of areas. So we'll wait to see what the outcome of that trade deal is. Now, a couple of days later, the US trade deal was announced. I will caveat it's not been signed yet because they're still working out a lot of detail. But the initial thing is the trade tariffs that Donald Trump put on countries around the world will be coming down for the UK in certain areas. Cars will go down to 10% automotive. And people quite misunderstand the tariffs that Donald Trump put on. So I always think, for years, the tariffs for automotive between the UK and America. The UK used to have 2.5% tariff if they were exported to the US. We had a 10% tariff on US cars. And that's generally what the tariffs are. US has always had quite low tariffs for countries, which is really, one example is their shrimp business. After they get a lot of their shrimp from Bangladesh, a lot more than they actually sell homegrown shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico or America now, depending how you see it. Because it's much cheaper to buy from Bangladesh and sell it in the US. So what the US did to rebalance this, to bring more trade to those fishermen and whatever on the coasts of Gulf of Mexico, they put up high tariffs on the shrimp coming from places like Bangladesh or Vietnam, so that they've got a chance to grow. And that's what they were doing with the car industry. They put higher tariffs on foreign cars so that their car manufacturing industry, which used to be the largest in the world at some point, starts to grow again and bring more factories back. America often did reciprocal tariffs. So if we charge 10%, they charge 10% on the same product. Certain industries like steel, like automotive, they put higher tariffs because they want to bring them back to America and use American products. So I can understand that. So if you look, and everybody was having a go at Donald Trump for this, and this is very misunderstood. Because if you look at it, look at the automotive. We were being charged 2.5% for sending cars to America. For American cars to be sent here, it was a 10% tariff, and that's what it was for years. That's not fair. That's not stable. But anyway, they announced this. The tariffs have dropped in certain areas, and the tariffs have pretty much dropped in all areas. But things like automotive and steel are still higher than they were before. This deal hasn't been signed, so why they're championing it, and the devil's going to be in the detail. I know there's been thing about hormone raised beef. Now, we can't take hormone raised beef in this country due to our laws and things like that. At the moment, we import 1,000 tons of organic beef from America. This will go up to 13,000 tons. So at the end of the day, it's not a big jump in how much is being used. It will give more opportunity to British farmers to actually sell in America. It'll be better for them if they take that up. And that's a big if, because there's a good example of when British farmers haven't taken advantage of something. For years and years and years, lamb had a 0% tariff in America from being sent in from outside. It took a lot of years. Australia and New Zealand have now taken advantage of this, even though tariffs have gone up on them for lamb, and they have cornered the market in America. We have Welsh lamb in this country, from where I am. Welsh lamb. Why haven't our, say, UK government, especially our Welsh government, that's opening offices all around the world, which it has no business because they can't do trade, they can't do that. Why haven't they promoted Welsh lamb in America when it's at 0% tariff and we sent nothing of lamb? We import more pork from America than we actually rear ourselves in this country, and they say, oh, pork is factory farmed over there. It's quite often factory farmed here. You do have your organic where pigs are free range, but quite often it's factory farmed in this country as well. Another big one was the chlorinated chicken. Yes, they wash their chicken in chlorine, a solution. It's actually less chlorinated than our water is, because our water is chlorinated. We use more chlorine in our water treatment than they do that. But the biggest thing about the chlorinated, they say, well, it means that their chickens may not be as healthy or raised correctly. Well, that's here and all there. Now, the biggest problem America has with beef is we have all these laws which were based on the EU about hormone raised beef. There are ways around this, and in America, the United States Department of Agriculture has a separate department called AMS, the American Marketing Services, that deals with organically grown beef. So they track the animal from birth to death and how it's then slaughtered and how it's prepared. But there's a lot of hurdles and a lot of red tape with it. And it has to be rigorously checked a lot more often than our beef is to qualify to be organic on this. And currently there are only less than 10 farms in America that qualify for this. So it's not going to be a big thing because they've told us we're not going to take hormone raised beef. So it's not going to be a big effect on our industry, but it gives a good opportunity for our farmers to go there, depending on what the final deal is, because they're still negotiating it, even though they've said they've got a deal. It makes no sense. But well done to the Labour government getting maybe the US deal, depending on the details. Okay, I'm a little more skeptical on the Indian one. Yes, $4 billion trade deal. Is that for? It didn't say it's an increase of $4 billion. It just said it's a £4 billion trade deal. I assume it's an increase on the 16 billion we already export. So that's a good thing. So it's a good thing. Okay, Conservatives didn't sign it because of these clauses inserted in the trade deal. We'll just see how that shakes out later on as the years go on. But this week, Labour have got, Keir Starmer's got a meeting with the EU about trade and other things. And the whispers are, or what's being said on news channels, and that is they're going to look for a Swiss-style agreement, which is we pay them to export to them, basically, to have access. Now, the problem with that is, if we have that style, we still have to abide by all the EU regulations. That even includes trading with places like America, with India, with Canada, with any other. We have to have the strict adherence to what the EU standards are, which would absolutely automatically kill those 50 deals we already have, or 52 now with the two new ones. 51 and a possible 52nd with America. It would absolutely kill that, and we're paying for the privilege of killing those deals. Whether they're really good for us or not, I don't know. So, what are your thoughts on that? Post them in the comments. Post them on the Political Hour page. It's always up there. Join. As it says here, please like, subscribe, click on the bell icon to keep updated, or join our Facebook page, the Political Hour, for even more news. I'll probably keep updating certain stories as they come along, if I think, especially if they're really newsworthy and I think there's problems and things like that. But yeah, two trade deals, yes, good thing. But as I say, the devil's in the details. There's certain bad things, and yes, you've got to take good with the bad sometimes, but sometimes there's too much bad to enjoy the good, really. And that says, I like big mugs, not big butts. Right, so what do we move on to next? Let's move on to the Inspector of the Police response to the public disorder in July and August 2024. This is a report by the Police Inspectorate, second only to the Home Office in authority over police. And it's quite damning, actually. I did a post on the Political Hour earlier questioning certain things. We know people were put in prison for spreading misinformation and lying about that. But in this report, it points out that far-right thuggery, which was Keir Starmer's phrase on his when he talked to the news and things like that, that is far-right thugs coming in from other parts of the UK into these towns and creating disorder. It wasn't far-right. As the report says, it's disaffected people who've been let down by governments for too long. And 99% of the people were local who were arrested or had connections to the area. It wasn't people being bussed out from other parts of the UK. It wasn't organised. It wasn't that. It was people who had been disaffected by governments and for a long time, not just the Conservatives, but Labour before that, Conservatives before that, so on and so forth. And it was in response to the tragic killing of 3 young girls. And sometimes people let off things. They don't let it off often in the right way. There was reports at the time that people were doing Nazi salutes and other things. This report says it wasn't far-right in any way. While there were very minimal far-right elements there, the majority of people were disaffected local people who had just had enough of local governments not doing enough, the UK government not doing enough to protect 3 young girls. Now, as I said, people were put in prison for posting on X or Facebook misinformation that It was malicious communication and misinformation was cited in a lot of these cases. Now, Keir Starmer stood up and said this was far right thuggery. It wasn't. So that was misinformation, and the report states the government knew that it wasn't far right. We know they didn't give information to stop the misinformation, so people are gonna think about things and just one person saying, if the government doesn't put out a proper narrative or a narrative to counteract it properly with information and facts, people are going to think about things and make conspiracy theories up and things like that. The government was already lambasted for that in a different report, for not putting information out quicker, and even then, some of it was months later. So, if these people were put in prison for malicious communication and misinformation, why isn't the Prime Minister being held to the same standard? Because he absolutely did. And then we have news outlets like the BBC who splashed verify across everything they put out about far right, it being far right people not from the towns, when it was completely wrong. So how they verified that is that because Keir Starmer said, and we verify Keir Starmer said it, so it must be true. Well, no. So why aren't BBC being held to that account? So the report's there. I posted it on the Political Owl page as well. In the post, as we can see, there's a lot. It's a long report. There's a lot of things in there. But as I said, it does go to the two-tier justice system. We see that all the time. And this morning, a man who was having an argument on the line with a protester who'd been in marches for Palestine said something. Okay, it was a bit silly. He said, "What are we going to do next? Round up all Jews at Heathrow?" And police went round to his door. Nobody had made a complaint about him. Nobody had made a complaint about the post. 6 police officers turned up at his door, body cameras. I know the right side of the media is saying, "Oh, they were batons and pepper spray." That's part of their tools anyway. So why that's being mentioned, I don't know. They have body-worn cameras, which they should have, but they rifled through his house. This guy used to be a special constable for 10 years with the same police force. He was arrested, held for 8 hours. In police cell, he was, I believe, 71. And it just beggars belief that this is happening when we've got so much crime out on the streets that they're worrying about what's happening online with what people are saying. There's a difference if criminal activities online, like sharing images of children or arranging drug deals or anything like that. That's a different matter. Yes, by all means, police that. You have to police that. But somebody just saying a comment like that, what are they going to do next? Round up all Jews at Heathrow Airport? It's not right. And police, I am only reporting what was in the papers today. I am not saying this myself. So, when are the police going to start policing what they should and not policing what they shouldn't? It is very, very silly. I'm just get ready for the next one. My cup's in the way of my screen, so I can't see what I'm doing. Next, I'm going to be doing something called Voices from the Street. See, I am prepared. I've got an owl that says Voices from the Street, UC Town Hall. What this is looking at stories from councils across the UK, and that's something that really grabs my attention. And there was something I've seen over the last nearly week, I suppose, that has grabbed my attention that I feel that people need to see. If I can get it up. There we go. This is the story of a councillor in Peterborough. Her name is, hang on, move my cup, it makes it easier. Her name is Daisy Blakemore Creedon. She is 19 years old. She was first elected last year at the age of 18, and she was a Labour councillor. Now, all credit to the girl. She's stood up for council at age 18. I wish more young people get into it. But this is where the problem, and probably what puts off not just a lot of young people, but older as well, older generation. She's had a lot of hate online. She's from Jewish descent. But this is not what the story's about, but I'll explain. She's from Jewish descent. She's never commented on anything that's happened in the Middle East online, but yet she gets called a paid Benjamin Netanyahu mouthpiece, even though she's never commented, and her reason for not commenting is she says she doesn't know enough, which is fair enough. This story, however, is because she introduced a motion in the licensing committee. Her motion was she wanted all taxis to have CCTV, which I think is sensible. It protects the customer, it protects the driver. I think it's a good thing. But the licensing committee did actually pass this motion, which is good. But the deputy leader of the Labour group said, "Well done, licensing committee, you just cost us a certain area with seats," because this certain area is, I'll say what I said on it. I don't know the actual makeup, but they said it was a heavily Pakistani area, and they don't want the CCTV in taxis. Don't know why. I'm not going to speculate on why, but I think this is absolutely silly. I think it's a good thing. Now, Labour has started a proceeding against her, saying that she was racist within their group and things like that because of introducing this CCTV. And I think it's an actually sensible position for any council to take. And she was so disgusted through this because of the Labour group taking internal disciplinary action against her for introducing this and possibly costing them seats in certain areas within Peterborough. She decided, well, I'm not going to be part of the Labour Party anymore. I can serve my constituents better as an independent. She's not planning on joining any other party. She feels at the moment she can represent her constituents better as an independent. And good on the girl. And I would like to see more young people like this who will stand up, whether it's with a party or whether it's independent, and work for the community that they live in, or the area, the community at large. And we should encourage this. We shouldn't be sending hateful messages to people like this. We shouldn't be sending it at all. By all means, disagree with policies, disagree with what they support, but it doesn't need to be hateful at all in any way. So, yes, this poor girl, Daisy Blakemore Creedon, has suffered a lot, but she seems to be very level-headed. I saw an interview with her on the news yesterday. Very level-headed for a 19-year-old, and good luck to her. She was a member of the Labour Party from 14. Her family vote all differently, but she was very grounded in Labour roots herself. Elected at 18 last year in a local election, and this year she's gone independent because her party have turned against her because she introduced a measure that could cost them seats in certain areas. And this is the problem, that they're more worried about seats than an issue of safety for drivers and for passengers in taxis. And it says a lot about a party. when they do this. That they're not being honest with people, that we're there for you, we're here for local issues, we want to represent you, when it's their issues that are more important, or losing a seat is more important. So we've had that this week, which is, so that's Voices from the Street. That was something really big that I think deserved a lot more attention, to show how parties actually work, or certain parties. I'm not saying all parties do it that way or are like that, but this party is. What's next? Oh yeah, we have a new Pope this week, who's, I'm not sure the best way to say is elected, but the Cardinals do elect them. Elected on Thursday. I'll stick with that, even though that's probably the wrong terminology. And I apologise to any Catholics who are watching. I'm not meaning to be disrespectful. So let's pull up Pope. Let's get it up on screen. Funny reason, I can only show this on screen if it's full up on my screen behind. Pope Robert? It's Robert Prevost, the new Pope Leo XIV. Born in America, spent most of his religious calling in Peru, and is a Peru citizen now. I'm sure America will claim they have the Pope, even though he's a Peruvian citizen. Good luck to him. He's going to be a different sort of Pope. He's already being called the woke Pope due to past tweets about immigration and other things, that immigration is not a problem. There are no borders, that sort of thing. I haven't looked majorly into it. I'm not really concerned about it. Catholic Church, not in my wheelhouse. It's not my cup of tea. I know there's many people out there, many religions have your religion, and I'm glad you've got that faith to keep you strong. It's nothing that's ever captured me. Maybe one day it will, I don't know. I can't say what tomorrow will bring. But yeah, so congratulations to the new Pope. We'll see how that goes along. We had VE Day this week, which was really celebrated on Monday, even though VE Day was Thursday. I know it's bank holiday, maybe that was the reason why. I wish more celebrations could have happened on Thursday. They did a lamp lighting in the area where I'm a community councillor in Coity High. While I was at the council meeting, annual general meeting, and the following meeting, I didn't go to the lamp lighting. I've got problems with my hips at the moment. This is why I'm sat on my son's bed today and not in my computer chair, because my computer chair has caused me too much problem with my hips. I've got a problem with my hip and my knee. I'm still not very well. As you can probably tell, my voice isn't as clear as it used to be 18 months ago. But yeah, I'm getting that. I'm doing the writing. It's helping. As I said, I started this channel to stave off the depression that was creeping up because of personal issues that are cropping up in my life, particularly medically. The writing, for some reason, is just clicked. Not just one story, which I am focusing on one story, and in the background building another. Well, more than another 7, I think it is, of building in the background, building characters and building the outlines and the world. This first one that I've fully written, fully finished. I have finished the screenplay before, it never went anywhere. That was a long time back in 2014. But this story has been percolating for many years, from the initial outline to developing the characters, to the last week or so, it just suddenly all clicked in my head how it fits together and how I can move the story through. I'm hoping to finish it, and I'm hoping a couple of my friends on Facebook will have a read of it for me and give me a proper critique of it. Maybe I'll send it to a publisher, or maybe I'll self-publish. We'll never know. If I do keep a lookout for the advertising, the book will be called Celestine's Rainbow. There'll be a synopsis for it, so it's not an adventure or fantasy or anything like that. It's about a young girl who puts others before herself for a moment when her life is in a bad way. She's 8 years old and she puts others before herself. It's an emotional story. I have cried at times writing it, and then I'm just an emotional person. I know this is off the politics track. I'm sorry, but after so many years of this percolating and the story clicking for me, finally, not just certain parts of it, but start to the finish. It's all laid out. It's all ready. I'm nearly 15, 16 chapters through writing it. It's going to be 20 chapters, so I've only got 5 or 6 left to write. I'm getting towards the end of it, and I'm quite excited about it. I want to finish it this week at some point. Anyway, I'll call it there for the live stream today. I didn't have anybody with me, which is fine. Most of these will be me just rambling on and bringing you things. I was thanking Mark John for joining me last week. I hope others will come on and join me, not just councillors in Bridgend, but from across the country. Maybe even Senate members or members of Parliament even. If there's any out there that want to come on and have a chat, we will. I'll never do a gotcha interview. I will give you hard questions if it requires it, if that's what the public want to hear, but generally it'd be just a general chat about things in the world today. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for joining me. Please, again, like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. Join the Political Owl page. Come and join me here every Sunday. I will be getting more in depth once I've finished this story and once I'm fully better, because a lot of it is I'm not fully well, and yeah, it's hard sometimes to motivate yourself when you're not feeling 100% that way. Anyway, have a good Sunday, have a good week. We'll see you next Sunday, hopefully. Thank you. Goodbye.